Professor Trelawney is one of the best characters in Hogwarts, prove me wrong. She's completely nuts, but she's hilarious. She also experiences a bit of a fall from grace as the books progress, and the extent of her downfall and significance of her character were never fully realised in the films, so I've decided to dedicate this video to Professor Trelawney's downfall. I would like to say there was a rise and a fall, but there kind of wasn't, to be honest. It was more of just a fall. The films did complete justice to Trelawney's crazy, hilarious character in the Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, and Emma Thompson absolutely nailed it. She was then brought back into the Order of the Phoenix film for her rivalry with Umbridge. I say rivalry, it was more like bullying, to be honest, but I think after film 5 she only appears really briefly in the final film for like 2 seconds. So as with quite a lot of characters, she was neglected in the films after number 3. So let's explore her journey through the books. So we're introduced to Trelawney in book 3 when the crew start taking divination. She's a complete weirdo from day one, but in the best way possible. And to be fair, she sort of does impress the class for a bit. Like, for literally a second. In their first ever lesson, Trelawney whacks out some random predictions, like warning Parvati Patil about a red-haired man, telling Neville his grandmother isn't well, and predicting that around Easter time one of their class will leave them forever. She also tells Lavender Brown that the thing that she's dreading will happen on the 16th of October. She also predicts that Neville is about to smash his teacup. Looking at predictions is quite interesting actually, because some of them are weirdly accurate, whereas some of them are just complete rubbish. As far as we're aware, no red-headed man ever caused Parvati any troubles, but I mean, to be fair, we wouldn't really know for sure, would we? I mean, maybe for all we know, later in life Parvati gets mugged by a red-haired thief. Also, with regards to Neville's grandmother, she seems completely fine throughout the rest of the Harry Potter books. I mean, I'm sure she probably did get a cold or something at some point, but what sort of prophecy making is that? One of their class does leave their class for good around Easter though, and it's Hermione. Hermione storms out of divination around Easter time and never returns to the class again. This could just be lucky guesswork from Trelawney, or if we're going to be really cynical, Trelawney could have quickly noticed Hermione wasn't enjoying the subject in the first lesson and decided to try and drive her to leave the class by Easter just to make her prophecy come true. Or maybe it's some flicker of a real prophecy creeping through the cracks. With regards to Neville's cup, he does indeed break it later in the same lesson. But like, the chances are, let's be honest, Trelawney did a tiny bit of research before her first lesson with the third years, found out that Neville was a bit of a nervous and clumsy person, and made the prediction that he would break his cup, hoping that this would then make him drop it, which is exactly what ended up happening. But then the best one of all is the 16th of October one. So, as we said before, Trelawney told Lavender Brown that the thing that she's dreading will happen on the 16th of October. Now this lesson would have been somewhere at the beginning of September. Now, on the 16th of October, Lavender Brown finds out that her pet rabbit, Binky, has passed away at home. So, now this one is quite good to be fair. How the heck did Trelawney know that Lavender's rabbit, Binky, would die on the 16th of October? Or around the 16th of October. I mean, there's a few possibilities. It could be completely random pot luck, but the odds of that are ridiculous. Another possibility is that Binky had already died back in early September, but Lavender's parents didn't want to tell Lavender at the time. She just started at Hogwarts for the year. So maybe they decided to wait until the 16th of October. Then I suppose it's possible that Trelawney could have heard about it in early September and therefore made the fake prediction. But like, again, that doesn't really make sense, because that would mean Lavender Brown's parents would have had to tell the school in early September that Binky had died, but also that they were going to specifically wait until the 16th of October to tell her. Which also makes no sense. I mean, okay, so I'm sort of coming to the conclusion that this must be like another slither of real prophecy sneaking through, because we know that she is a genuine seer. Even if it barely ever happens, Trelawney does make some real prophecies. We know that from events later in the books. So, is there a chance that every now and then she gets random little bits of truth even though she doesn't know that that's what it is? There's one other explanation, and it's a bit sinister. What if Trelawney, so desperate to impress her class, went and killed Lavender's rabbit Binky? It's possible. We know that Trelawney is insecure about people not thinking she's a real seer. We know it seems to matter to her to make people think that she can see the future, Could she have gone to extreme lengths to impress this class? The only issue with this theory is that Binky the rabbit was actually killed by a fox. Trelawney could, I suppose, have bewitched the fox to attack Binky, or killed Binky herself and made it look like a fox had done it. I can see it in my mind's eye now. Anyway, who knows? Spooky. So, the year goes on and Trelawney just continues doing her thing, annoying Harry with increasingly less scary predictions about him dying. Christmas that year brings one of the most brilliant scenes Trelawney has ever been involved in. The Christmas dinner scene from the third book remains one of my favourite ever moments from any of these books, and one of the moments that I am most excited for in the HBO series in 18 months or so. 18 months left. Anyway, so at Christmas dinner, sat down, it's just McGonagall, Dumbledore, Snape, Flitwick, Sprout and 2 random first year students, a Slytherin 5th year student, then Harry, Ron, Hermione and Filch. That's it. What a squad. Everyone else in the school has gone home for the Christmas holidays because they're all really scared about Sirius Black. Trelawney bursts in just after they've all sat down and apparently announces that she was apparently crystal gazing and she apparently saw herself joining them for Christmas dinner. Like, yeah, alright, that and she was starving. But before she sits down, she lets out a huge gasp and says that if she sits down, they'll become 13. And she says that when 13 dine, the first to rise is the first to die. Then she also predicts that Professor Lupin won't be with them at Hogwarts for much longer. I mean, I just generally love this scene because this random group of people having Christmas dinner together and making small talk and pulling Christmas crackers is just hilarious. But looking at her 2 sort of predictions, they both sort of do come true. Lupin did leave Hogwarts just 6 months later. And regarding the first to rise, first to die thing, this has been discussed by many other YouTubers and fans, but as Scabbers was already likely on the table with Ron, they were probably already 13 before Trelawney sat down. And as Dumbledore stood up when Trelawney arrived to welcome her, he was the first to arrive from the 13. He was the first to rise from the 13, and he was indeed the first to die. Now, this could be pot luck to be fair. Dumbledore was the oldest one on the table, and probably the second biggest Death Eater target after Harry. Trelawney's big moment though comes at the end of Harry's 3rd year. She makes the prophecy about Lord Voldemort's servant that has been chained for 12 years breaking free and aiding Voldemort to return. And as we know, this prophecy did come true and very quickly, with Peter Pettigrew escaping and going to help Voldemort come back to power. I mean, it's got to be Trelawney's finest hour this. This is like a very solid prediction. It comes true in a matter of weeks. 4th year rolls around, Trelawney doesn't really play a huge role in this story, she sort of just keeps up her usual antics of predicting Harry's death. Barely anyone thinks she's remotely impressive, almost everyone thinks she's a fraud with the exception of Lavender and Parvati. 5th year though is when her fortunes start to change. I mean, I say they start to change, right? So what I mean is, if you think about it, she has actually made one very legitimate prediction the previous year, and it kind of seems like she made quite a few other fairly accurate ones. She's got a full-time job, and even though a lot of people think she's a joke, she's at least got her dignity, sort of. With Harry's 5th year comes the arrival of the demon that is Dolores Umbridge. Umbridge picks Trelawney out as a fraud pretty much from day one. She's the first to get put on probation and then consequently sacked by Umbridge. Umbridge intends on kicking her out of the school, but Dumbledore later insists that she stays, and we later find out why. Umbridge says that she'll have to leave her room so that the new divination teacher can stay there, when she finds one. Dumbledore, however, to Umbridge's utter horror, announces it's all good because he's already found a new divination teacher who has sorted their own lodgings. Now, the new teacher, it turns out, is Firenze, the centaur we saw briefly in the first book and film who rescued Harry from the Forbidden Forest. Umbridge is absolutely seething that Dumbledore has gone behind her back to hire a teacher, and furthermore a part human, which is Umbridge's pet hate. Maybe Umbridge just loves conducting job interviews. Trelawney, though, falls apart. Unemployment leads to her becoming a bit of a drunken mess. We, as readers and Harry, find out later that year that it was in fact Trelawney that made the prophecy about Harry and Voldemort. The prophecy that led Voldemort to try to kill Harry in the first place, ending up killing Harry's parents. and then drove Voldemort to order his Death Eaters to break into the Ministry at the end of Harry's 5th year, which led to Sirius's death. This prophecy pretty much set the entire Harry Potter story in motion, and it was made by Trelawney. This is my point. Trelawney was actually a decent seer. She made at the very least 2 very legitimate prophecies, and potentially a few more. That's all we know about as well. It's very much possible that she made a bunch of other very accurate ones earlier in her life that we just don't know about. I think the problem is that she didn't actually know about either of these 2 definitely real prophecies that she had made. If she had, she may have been a bit more self-reflective and stopped pretending that she was making predictions all the time when she very often wasn't. She might have actually got a bit more credibility this way and respect. And who knows, she might have not lost her job in Harry's 5th year. When 6th year rolls around, as Umbridge has been booted out of Hogwarts, Dumbledore lets Trelawney return to teaching. However, he's got a bit of a dilemma because Firenze, Centaur, basically got in a load of trouble with his fellow Centaurs for agreeing to work for Dumbledore. Firenze, and he got banished from his herd. So Dumbledore couldn't kick Firenze out. Dumbledore proposes that Firenze and Trelawney split the classes between them, with Firenze taking some year groups and Trelawney taking the rest. Trelawney does not take this well. She's a bit of a joke really at this point. She hits the bottle hard. Anytime Harry sees her over the following year, she's basically stumbling around, stinking of sherry. He also finds out that she's been using the Room of Requirement herself to hide her empty sherry bottles. Presumably, she doesn't want the other teachers to know how bad her drinking got. Poor Trelawney. So yeah, she doesn't really fall from grace. She wasn't really respected to begin with, but she fell even further and became even more of a joke. And by the end of Harry's 6th year, Trelawney inadvertently reveals a huge piece of information to Harry. She tells Harry about the day that she made that prophecy about Harry and Voldemort to Dumbledore many years ago, although she of course didn't know that she'd made it. But she tells Harry that when she was talking to Dumbledore that day, they were interrupted by Snape, which Harry understands to mean that it was Snape that overheard the first bit of the prophecy, which led Voldemort then to go and try and kill baby Harry and end up killing Harry's parents. This is a huge reveal. Harry's absolutely fuming as he basically takes this as it being Snape's responsibility and fault that his parents died, which it essentially was, to be fair. So yeah, Trelawney actually plays a huge role at the very core of the Harry Potter story. She just doesn't realise it. And towards the end of the book, she becomes a complete mess. She does join in briefly at the Battle of Hogwarts, hurling crystal balls at the Death Eaters. Which, to be fair, if I was a Death Eater and some drunk middle-aged woman was launching crystal balls at me, I would probably run for the hills. So yeah, it's sad really. Had Trelawney been a bit more modest and less of an actress, she might have actually been quite successful in the wizarding world. But then we wouldn't have got one of the funniest, weirdest and generally most amazing characters in the Harry Potter books. Expertly portrayed of course by Emma Thompson in the films, and yet to be revealed who will portray her in the HBO series. But anyways, if you thought this video was any good, drop it a like and subscribe to the channel for more.